Hey guys, here is the gear for today. We've got Barrister and Mann Tuesday, and we're going to be working it up with the B13 brush from Declaration. The knot is, and the handle is from Dogwood Handcrafts and Briar Brushworks. And then the Fine Accoutrements razor here, the stainless, they called it the world's finest razor or something like that, but it doesn't deserve that title, but it's a very good razor. A little overpriced, and so I bought mine used. The Perma-Sharp is the blade for today, and it is, I think, brand new. And it's not the 7 o'clock Gillette Perma-Sharp, it's just the straight Perma-Sharp stainless. I'm pretty much sure that the Perma-Sharp boxes, I think they're like orange and gold or something. The ones that say super and the ones that don't say super are the same. From my research, that seems to be the case. So, Perma-Sharp. It is a blade, as I now put my brush back in to kind of soak and get those tips all soft. The Perma-Sharp is a blade that I just kind of overlooked for a while. I think I did try it early on. I don't know if I tried it in a razor that just didn't show it off in its best light, or if it was just kind of lost in just the great number of blades that we have access to. But it's become a favorite. It's become a blade that actually that works very well in many of my razors. And so let's put it in this finest. I've done kind of reviews on this finest, world's finest razor here before. So you can look at those in more detail. I think it's a very good medium aggression razor. The handle is kind of plain, but it's very functional. The balance is great. The knurling is terrific. I really like the head in the terms of the shave that it delivers. I like it in terms of attractiveness. But and it is all stainless steel, and Fine Accoutrements wanted to get on the bandwagon with the stainless steel razor kind of release that was going on in among other makers. You know, Stirling released theirs. Oh, hey, now that's interesting. I just finished using the Stirling razor recently, so it's fortuitous that I would move on to the stainless version, the stainless razor from another company that doesn't normally make their own razors. All right. I think today I'll be wearing Stirling Hipster at the end of the shave, but I might put on the Stirling Balm as the immediate post-shave type item. And so Tuesday is an interesting scent that you don't see a lot around in the shaving community. Will of Barrister and Mann released it, and I don't guess it was received with a whole lot of sales. And my first exposure to it was a small sample of the cologne, the EDT. It was just included with a Barrister and Mann order, and lavender and violet are the two notes that he highlights on his label here. And the EDT had some other stuff in there that, I don't know, it just made me not really enjoy wearing it for very long. And so that EDT I'm probably still sitting on my desk somewhere. And I thought, you know what? But what came into my head with this scent was this could be something that is amazing, and I just don't have the ability to perceive it as such yet. It could be that if I put this on every once in a while, all of a sudden it dawns on me how great it is, that kind of thing. And so that's why I kept it around. It reminds me of the Fougère Aromatique or the Fougère Impériale, the two colognes I bought during this past Black Friday. It seems to have a little crank, a little tweak in there that's kind of like that. And that's in that same vein where it's taken me a little bit to get used to those and appreciate them and what they offer. So many times when you have a cologne, you put it on, sometimes you instantly appreciate it and enjoy it. Sometimes you like it for just a second, but then you don't like it anymore and you don't want to wear it any longer than half an hour and you get sick of it, right? And then there are some that are the other end of the spectrum where you don't apprehend it immediately, but then maybe the next day you're craving and you miss it, or you get tired of a certain same genre over and over, and so that's when a wonderful departure. You can turn to a certain maybe non-favorite as a great departure, that kind of thing. There's all kinds of ways it goes down. Now, in addition to trying this soap for the first time, and it could be a mistake, but maybe not. Simple Forging posted me a question and about lathering and looking at the different aspects of how to look for a good lather, how to know when to stop adding water, and all those milestones along the way that you can pay attention to. Well, the first time I recorded a video for him for that, and you can see it in my history here, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago, a mazel nut. There was a small sample of Barrister and Mann mazel nut. And that one was the omnibus base, I believe, or at least it was, it may have not been omnibus, but it was a low structure base that kind of stays gluey. It has maybe more of the oils in it. And so it's very different than a lot of the bases out there. Now this, I believe, is glissant. It does not have the E that would say it's Excelsior, and I believe Tuesday was released back when glissant was the main soap base that Barrister and Mann had. And glissant is one of my favorites from Barrister and Mann. I'm pretty sure I like it better than Excelsior, and definitely better than Reserve, better than, and maybe even better than Omnibus. I need more of a chance to try Omnibus as we go to say that for sure. And so I think it'll be a great example of how to watch the lather progress. And it's that other kind of lather. It's not that kind of low gluey type of lather that you've got to be. It's a little trickier to see the signs when it's low and gluey because it looks like it's hydrated enough, that kind of thing. And so we'll use that today. And for Simple Forging, hopefully he will enjoy this little kind of mini tutorial. And of course, it's coming from my perspective. You'll find tons of guys out there who shave, especially who face lather, and like a thick, pasty lather, sometimes so much that I cringe when I watch them shave with it, because I know in my own experience, if I shave with that kind of pasty lather, it just doesn't protect me very well. And you can hear the scrapey noises, and I can feel the irritation coming up on my skin. Even watching somebody else shave with that, I mean, I remember the irritation. It doesn't actually come up, right? And so this is my opinion. This is how I like it. But even if you like your lather drier than I like mine, or wetter than I like mine, I think the milestones and the landmarks and the things that the attributes that I tell you about the lather are going to be valuable to you, even though we may differ. Because let's say there's a point where the peaks are kind of long but still have their structure to them. They're still holding up. They're not like wilting over. Maybe that's where you like to stop your lather. Maybe that's where you like to stop adding water and just go ahead with the shave. Okay, and so some of those milestones, you may get off of that highway a little sooner than I would, but they could still be, they should still be very valuable for all manner of shavers. So that's what we'll head down today. And I think glissant is a terrific base to do that with. I'm going to get my face wet. I've got my water that will add to the soap. This razor should be a great razor to not give me any irritation, kind of a medium aggression in terms of being very efficient at cutting and a close cut. However, not give me irritation, that kind of thing in general. With my face wet, we can proceed on. This was poured. This is not a refill puck. This was poured into the container. And then the water has, it's been cured inadvertently by non-use. The water has slowly evaporated out, even though it was stored, with the cap. Water just, as tight and stuff, water just, it gets out, right? And so if you don't use a soap for a long time, this will happen. And then when you go back to use it, put some water in it in the sense of applying a wet brush to it. That'll gradually add more moisture. It'll expand back out to fit the container, especially if you use it consecutively or with any kind of regularity. But if you do find yourself coming back to soaps after a year, if you have a large rotation or you just have a few that you don't use very often, then you may find that happens. And it's a pretty easy fix. You just ignore it. You just load. If you find that you're working the brush in it and it's rotating, you'll probably have to add some to your load time. If 30 seconds is usually what you go for, or 45 seconds, and when it's this hard, when it's been sitting and has reduced like this and hasn't been used in so long, this could conceivably have not been used in a few years because of when Glissant came out, when this scent came out, and it looks like it hasn't been used at all ever. Okay, and so that's why I'm going to put 45 seconds as a load time. 30 seconds is my standard, but since it hasn't been used yet in a very long time, I'm going to add 15 seconds to it. If I find that the soap is really rotating around, matter of fact, why don't we just go ahead and prevent that right now? If you find that it's rotating around, just add more time, because that's less time that the brush is moving across your soap. And so what we can do, we can, you see even right now, if I try to scrape it from the sides, it's moving around and rotating. You can't just use it and it will expand back to fill the space. But I've just gradually picked up some shavings here, and what I'm going to do is press those around in the gap. And this is not the fault that I had to do that. It's not the fault of the manufacturer at all. That's just what happens with soaps. With these are actually cropes. We call them cropes because it's kind of halfway between a cream and a soap. And as the water leaves, that's just what happens. Mitchell's wool fat is renowned for drying out and actually cracking. Cracks will develop around because it's a hard soap. It comes to you as a hard soap and it turns back into that compact hard soap if it's allowed to dry out. And some people will soak their Mitchell's puck in water. I don't think that's necessary, but some people will do that to kind of rehydrate it, and it'll expand out to fill the container in many cases, especially if it's the Mitchell's sized container. And so all I did was take a few shavings off the top of the soap, press them around in that gap. And so I hope and I bet that works to keep the soap in place as we're working it with the brush. So I've got, my face is wet, my brush here is wet. So I'm going to shake out a lot of the water because this is a big 28 millimeter knot, I think. It holds a lot of water. Still quite wet. I really enjoy this knot, and so we're going to go at it with, it's been a while, but it's still soft. I felt its softness, relatively soft, as I was smearing it around. So 45 seconds may be overkill, but let us just give it a shot anyway. I may stop sooner. 40 seconds in the next minute is kind of my stopping point. I can feel the soap rocking back and forth a little bit. It is rotating a little. The sticking the shards in the gap idea there is a great one when the soap is hard. But see, this is just a crope, and I don't know if you can see the soap rotating, but yeah, it is. And so the brush is not being as effectual at picking up the soap, and because of that. Now that's okay. You just add more time. Another thing, because I can hear it kind of sucking a little bit, I'm going to add just a few sprinkles of water on top of the soap just to kind of help with. Maybe I shook too much water out of the brush. And so now, unfortunately, I didn't check my clock, so we'll just kind of have to wing it this time. I should have looked at my clock to know when I stopped. And once you, if you're working on your load time, that should be plenty. If you're working on your load time and your soap and all that stuff, it can vary per soap base as well. Oh, look, some good looking stuff right there. Now, violet is a floral note that has surprised me in that I've seen a few soaps have it, and I haven't been dissuaded from enjoying it. Now let's start to work these things together here. Midnight Dreary from Katie's Bubbles is a violet scented, or has a violet component in it. And there's another one, and I have found that I really enjoy that. When done properly, it's not that high. It's not like a rose or gardenia or jasmine that seems to have a more feminine feel to it, at least to me. Now, a lot of guys will argue and say scents are not masculine or feminine, but to me, they kind of are. There are certain ones that just seem ladylike. It's just the way, I mean, it just seems like that. And you may disagree, and that's okay. But to me, they just seem that way, and I don't really enjoy those ladylike ones unless they're balanced with something that's either neutral or manly. I've got several rose scents that have a rose component in there, but tell you what, some woodiness that comes in, and if the rose is an accent to that woodiness, that's a really awesome thing that scent makers sometimes do, and I really enjoy it because rose can offer a sweetness to a scent. I'm gonna go ahead and rinse this kind of stuff off my face now. So the rose definitely brings something to the table, and so it's not like I don't like those. I do like them sometimes in conjunction with other blends, but the violet seems to be one that doesn't trigger that in me. It doesn't feel as feminine, and so I really enjoy the maybe it's on the kind of darker side of the floral spectrum, perhaps. So anyway, looking forward to trying this out as a shaving soap. Now, because I came at this with a brush that wasn't super wet, then I am not getting anything airy and bubbly. And so today we're talking about the life cycle of the lather, its development period. Sometimes in the beginning, if you come at it with kind of a wet brush, then the very first stages of your lather is nothing like this, right? It's bubbly and airy, and you definitely don't want to shave with that in most cases. But we've skipped that stage by coming at it with a brush that did not have a lot of hydration to it. And so and this, in a way, it's good because you can see kind of the texture develop. Okay, you can see it's easily sticking to the sides. You can see textures and contours and ridges and folds and things like that. If you do happen to, and it's fine to come at your lather with a wetter brush. There's nothing wrong with that with most soaps. It just means you need to mix for a little while before you start to kind of get the real lather emulsion coming together. Okay, and so then we'll just add some water. You can, and of course I'll say you can also shortcut your lather a little bit by if you start with a wetter brush, then that will have kind of that effect. If you have done it enough to where you figure out that a certain amount of water, like 2 teaspoons of water, if that's generally what you like, you use the same soap base over and over, and so you know, then some soaps, a lot of them, can tolerate you just dumping the whole amount of water right in, and then you just mix until it looks right. So just now, I didn't put in a whole lot. Just like 10 milliliters of water. And so now we have an instant change. Doesn't it look a lot more creamy than it did a minute ago? We see some softness. We see the glisten of the what we call it, the sheen of the lather in some cases, but that's not really something to look for as a general rule. Don't consider yourself a failure if your lather doesn't develop a sheen. Not all soaps do. I think it's just a property of the soap and not something that's always true. It is nice when a soap might develop a sheen when it gets to the right hydration that you might like it, because I mean, what a wonderful tell. What a wonderful little oven timer that goes, boom, your lather's done, you know. But most soaps do not do that. And so you can see how it's spreading and it's more creamy. Now it's still not moving around. We still see ridges. We still see some peaks a little bit. Okay. And so when you don't have to have your lather fully integrated as you're adding water and mixing in, because as we know, there's more mixing coming. You don't have to, if you don't want to, fully integrate the water that you add, because it will get mixed in eventually. But if you're beginning and you're struggling with your lather, you may want to fully integrate that water, because what if you're already at the stopping point and you don't know it because you haven't integrated that water yet? You don't have a homogeneous mixture, and so you keep adding water not knowing that you're already there, and so then you pass your mark a little bit. So we've added a little bit more water. Sound is another thing to listen for as you're mixing it up, and of course this is something that you get more of when you're using a bowl. You can hear, once you've done it a while, you can hear it kind of be a dry kind of sound. You can hear when it's wet. Now see, look, we have a peak there on the brush. Now the peaks are good to pay attention to if your lather is well mixed. If it's been homogenized and doesn't have any wet places or dry places, then the peaks are a good measure here. Matter of fact, look, we've got a peak right in the middle of the bowl there, and you can tell, doesn't the lather look quite different? We still have that sheen. We don't have nearly as many peaks and ridges, and we have a lot more smooth surface. And this is a top-notch lather. I believe Glissant is just one of the top ones out there. Some people would shave with this. Now see how it sticks up on the wall still? But you can see how it's gotten a little thinner and it's drooping down with the peaks. Another thing you can do is, I like to rake, kind of shove gradually all my lather down to the bottom, and then pick it up with the kind of the side of the brush and look at what it does. You can wiggle your brush and see, if you have more lather, you can then see how it falls off and what falls off, what shape it takes when it lands. And we are seeing this hold together pretty well. It's clear I'm not working with a ton of lather, isn't it? So that the age of the puck, having sat around, is coming into play here. And then the fact that the puck moved as I was working up the lather. And probably the fact that I maybe needed a little bit more water in my brush. So see, all those things can come into play. Now I believe there's going to be plenty of lather for the shave, and so I'm not going to go back and pick up more soap, because this knot is holding a good bit of lather in it. I think it could easily hold 2 passes of my kind of lather. I mean, maybe 3 if you really pushed it. Okay, now we've got a little bit more lather developing now because we added that water. You can see those peaks holding themselves up. It's not really going to slide down the brush very much if I held it like that. When a clod drops from your brush, like you just saw, what does it do when it lands? Does it keep its shape? Does it deform and flatten out? To what degree it does that is a landmark that you can pay attention to. If it doesn't change its shape at all, that's almost always an indication to me that it needs more water, because the weight that water adds to your lather will cause it to deform, and so as well as, of course, cause it to be more creamy and not hold its structure. So those two things mean that maybe it probably needs more water if it doesn't change shape when it hits your bowl. How long the peaks are when it leaves your brush. How does it stretch? See, that also could, now look, this one looks beautiful. It looks creamy. The sheen is just terrific. And I guarantee you there's some of you guys out there that would want to stop right now and use this lather, and that's just what your preferences is. And that is not, there's anything wrong with that at all. I'm going to take this one a little bit further. One thing that has caught me by surprise many times, I like to soak my brushes where there's really a good bit of water in the brush. And there's a problem with that, is you have to press down at some point when you're mixing it in the bowl to make sure that the soap gets up into the center of the knot, because when you've had a really wet brush. Because then later on in your shave, maybe even when it's on your face, I've had that water release and then kind of ruin the lather, wash it out. So we just added some more water, and we will just give it a good work here. I'll also just mention as a side item, there are people who will recommend the suribachi bowls that are Japanese style, and they have ridges and a rough texture on the inside. I definitely advise not using those for any brush, really, unless you have a really cheap one or one you just don't care about, because I mean, come on, that's abrasive, and I don't want anything abrasive on the tips of my brushes, any brush I care about. And if you don't care about the brush, why are you using it? So I would advise against those. And that came to my mind because I was going to tell you that, sure, my custom little 3D printed bowl has these ridges and a divot in the middle that help with moving your bristles around in a way that helps you churn up the lather. But even if you have a solid bowl, I've got one up here from the Dollar Tree. It does really well at mixing up a lather. You don't have to have the special contours or bumps, or people who glue pennies in the bottom. You don't have to do that. And sometimes those things can add air into your lather in a bad way. And so you have to be careful with that. It does, the contours in the bottom of your bowl do speed up the lather making process a little bit. But I'd much rather have a bowl that's the right dimension, the right width and height, and other attributes, and have no contour on the bottom at all, and have it be the right dimensions. That's much more important to me. All right, and so as you can see, we have the quantity and the volume of the lather is increasing. We're still keeping that beautiful gloss. It just happens to be something that the Glossant base does offer you. I've had plenty of soaps that I've hydrated them right where I wanted, and it was perfect and wonderful and creamy, but it just didn't have a gloss to it. Didn't have a sheen. Some people think that that's a hallmark of a good lather, but not always. Now look at that. Look at the way it dropped. Look at the surface of the brush here. The lather on the brush, it's very smooth. There's almost no ridges. Okay, that's something to look forward to look at. Now here we have a little wall of lather up here on the side, and it's got a peak there that's holding its own. Okay, that could be just fine necessarily, because if there's a lot of lather to support it, then lather doesn't have to be just dripping down. But this little guy right here, the blob there, look at him change shape. I'm going to turn my bowl over. You can see if he slowly moves down the bowl. Okay, look at his texture. Look how kind of soft and ridgeless. He's lost his form. You know, I think this lather's getting to a really good place. I might even stop at this point. Okay, and see, as we move it around, look at the soft edges. We do have some ridges. There are some vegan soaps that I can't take to this point because they just don't hold up very well. And so not all soaps can be taken to that perfect preference point, if I can alliterate. I'm going to add just a little bit more water. Well, that wasn't really a little bit, but that may be all we need to add. Now, if you haven't taken your lather to the point where it's dripping down your face, where it's dripping down on your brush, I think you should at some point, just to see if you like that. Make sure it's a good soap though. A bad soap just won't shave you well at that point. But a good soap like this one and others will still give you a tremendous shave, even if you've overwet your lather a little bit. But if you never take it to that point, you really don't know how far you've actually taken yours, because you haven't taken it too far, you know what I mean? Well, I definitely didn't need to add more soap to this. See, look at that peak right there. When I mixed up the lather and I pulled it away, I had that long peak right there. I mean, look, this looks like some kind of Arctic snow scene, right? We can, again, pull the lather down in the bottom and then lift it up. When you've got a big glob on your brush, and you can kind of wiggle it. Watch how it behaves. Okay, there's kind of a long peak right there. Sometimes when you take that long peak and pivot it to the side, this long peak is moving down. He's drooping slowly. Okay, that's probably about where I like this particular soap base. Many long peaks will still keep their structure, and they'll be still sticking out like that. In some cases, that means you need to keep adding water. At least I do. Okay, that's what it looks like down in the bowl. Kind of a melted marshmallow cream is kind of the look that I usually go for. And this guy right here is, I think he is ready to go. So there we go. There are some milestones in how the lather can look. Like I smoothed it down on the bottom, and look, and then I picked my brush up from the middle part. We've got that kind of hook in the middle, but look at the kind of field of easy cream. Looks terrific. And so now we do have some lather still sticking up on the walls, but it's just not a really big deal at all. It just looks like a snowy, melty, creamy kind of thing. You can, I've got my brush down in the bottom part of the bowl, and then I'm going to pull it out and look right there. Early on, I showed you how the soap would stay up on the wall of the bowl, but this has collapsed and it's drooping right there. Some of the thicker part it's thinner right there. It doesn't have as much to hold it. It doesn't have as much weight to pull it down, and so it's staying up on the top. But see, that had more weight to that area right there. And so see how he is slurring down and drooping down. And so some soaps, a great landmark to tell when you want to stop, at least if you like my preference, is to wait until the soap just doesn't stay up on the wall anymore. And again, yeah, we have that kind of big old wall of lather right there. I bet if I turn it upside down, see the ridge is starting to come away from the bottom of the bowl there. So the weight of the water is affecting how the soap performs. I think this is just terrific for this particular base. And a lot of soaps, I would aspire to get it to this point. I bet I might be able to take it a little wetter, but I'm going to go ahead and use this. So, simple forging. Hope this is of help. And when you have a quality tallow soap especially, and even there are a few top-level vegan soaps out there that will still kind of act this way. I think this is a good model for a lot of top-level soaps. If you have a kind of lower quality soap that isn't designed to hold as much water, then you have to just back off a little bit, stop it a little sooner, don't add as much water, and you still might get that creaminess with the slickness and protection that will give you a good shave. All right, get my face wet. So I was very pleased with that lather. I liked the way that it started off not looking like it had a lot of volume, because it didn't at first, because it needed more water. And so we have easily seen now that we have plenty of lather to go. And so it started out to me like it looked like because of those factors I mentioned, maybe I didn't gather enough soap onto the brush, but I did. And it just took the water adding to bring that out. I'll probably have 2 extra passes at the end of the shave here. So we will load up the brush. We don't, with such a big brush like this, I don't actually have to add much excess. Man, now this is like a spa day right here, to have a lather this wet and this creamy to be put on with a brush that has the tips and the spread and splay and comfort like this is about as good as it gets if you're looking for brush and lather and comfort and all that stuff. Now, if you're a bowl latherer, you may hear some face latherers say that they enjoy using their brush. They paid a couple $100 for a shaving brush and they want to use it. And so that's why they don't like to use a bowl, because you spend more time in the bowl than on your face. And while that's probably true, don't forget that when you go to apply the lather that you've made on your face, you don't just want to paint it on and quit. You want to work it into your skin. I'm getting a little excess here. I don't want it to fall off, so I'm going to rake it into the bowl. You also want to give your skin time to absorb the part of the moisture in the lather and some of the lather ingredients, because that's going to soften it up. It's going to then slicken it up. Oh, now you know what I'm seeing right now? I could have added more water. Now, some people like this exact right here. If you want a little bit of opaqueness to your lather, you don't want it to get translucent, then you're going to be super happy with this. It's got a high creamy quality to it. Now, but if you're going for performance and you want that ultra slick razor glide, then I would add just a little bit more water to even this lather here. What makes me think that this could use a little bit more water? Well, I've got the gathering along on my goatee. It's not too bad though. But it's the feel. I almost feel it. It doesn't feel too pasty, but the creaminess just feels a little on the thick side. And then also look at the brush. As I've been working, I had to scrape off some lather a minute ago, but right here we're starting to gather more. And so we're building lather on my face here. So that means it could use more water. I'm going to scrape off that excess. And then what you can do, you can just ignore it, but what I'm going to do is just take some dribbles, quite a few dribbles, and add it to the brush. If you pour too much into the brush, it kind of just drips out the handle. You've definitely seen me on my videos tilt my head over to try to keep that moisture in the brush until once it gets integrated with the lather, it's great. Obviously, it's not going to drip out, right? But until then, yeah, see, I can feel the slickness improve. The creaminess will reduce slightly. It's not going to be quite as thick and creamy, but I can feel the slickness come. It'll be a little bit translucent in a few places. And look, we keep gathering more lather around the edge of the brush there. And so as you can see, I've been working this on my face for a couple minutes. And so I am getting to enjoy the quality and the feel of my brush. So it's really kind of a myth that bowl lathers don't get to enjoy brushes. It's not always true. And a matter of fact, if you're a bowl lather who just paints it on and goes, you're missing out on some extra protection that working it in really gives you. And of course, you're missing out on the great feel of a good brush. Not only does working this into your skin, taking the time to do that, Not only does it give you those protection and slickness benefits I was telling you, but as we just saw, it is the proving ground. It is the validator of your lather. As we just saw, I had to add more water to it. And so I didn't get it to that perfect place in the bowl, but by letting it get worked into my face, I saw it become a lather that just needed to be tweaked just a little bit. And you're going to miss out on that if you just kind of paint it on. Look at the shape. You see the shape of that kind of excess on my beard there? It's holding together easily. It's not dripping off. Now, of course, it'll fly off at some point because it's a clod, but that shape right there, that in some parts, it actually had a little bit of some pointiness to it. See, so that tells me I could definitely add more water to the lather if I wanted to. But I tell you, a lot of you guys are going to be really well served if you can get it to this point. And then if you take it a little farther, you might really enjoy that too. But get it to this point at least, and you'll really be able to see what having a well-hydrated lather is all about. And if you look, I almost have been generating more and as much lather as I've pulled away from the bowl here. I've almost been generating back to replace what I've taken. It's almost like a self-sustaining bowl of lather. All right, well, that's just what a good soap does. It's really flexible. I could have stopped a long time ago and used that if I wanted to. I wanted it to be a little drier. But I've kept adding water, and along the way, each of those are decent stopping points if that's what I wanted. It's one of those subjective things where you just, you pick where you like it, you know, and so I'm not telling anybody that they're wrong in terms of where they like their lather. I do often say that if you do have a dry lather, then I encourage you to try a wet one because you may not know what you're missing. But if you like the dry lather, then go for it. Certainly quicker to work up, isn't it? All right. So, world's finest razor with a Perma-Sharp, brand new Perma-Sharp stainless razor blade in it. 2 days of growth, almost. Oh yeah, see that the glide is terrific. And it's cutting through the hair easily. Now, often when I see little wispy remnants like this on my face, that's another sign of the hydration of your lather. This look here often betrays a lather that could use more water. Because if it's wetter, it won't quite look like that. It won't be as thin. More of it will kind of be raked away. So I could have a even slicker lather than it is right now if I added more water. Now here is the catch. The second pass is almost always more hydrated than the first. And so I believe that what we have now, when it becomes a second pass, is going to be pretty much perfect. That's my guess. Now, I think you're going to know if you have a really dry lather as you've been looking at the lather I've created. But another way is if you shave and you have a clump of lather on your razor and you have to use a jet of water from your sink to clear away the stubble and the lather from your razor, you could definitely use more water if you choose. And I would advise you to, because that amount of water is not very much. You'll get more slickness and more protection if you get a wetter lather. Gently falling water due to gravity should easily rinse your razor clean fairly quickly. And if it doesn't, then that's a sign that you could add more water to your lather if you wanted to. All right, feeling good. Yeah, I've got tons of lather here. Now, you don't have to work in your lather on the in any pass that's after the first one. you've got that little micro layer of protection down on your skin, and so you can just kind of paint it on and go if you want. Now, if you enjoy your brush so often like I do, I'll spend another extra minute or 30 seconds or 2 minutes just enjoying the brush. Tons of lather here. That really looked like I was maybe not going to have enough, but no, I was wrong. So this is really nice. See, again, we've got a thin layer right here of protection for your skin, and that's all you need. Anything that's more than half a millimeter thick on your face is kind of extra. A lot of people don't realize that. They need to have that opaque. And of course, hey, if that's your preference, if you like the look of that Santa's beard opaque lather, it looks like it came from a can or, whatever. If that's your preference, then go for it. But it's not needed for slickness. And what matters for slickness is that thin layer. And so now we should have a lather that is wetter, because I did leave some water on my skin. So again, this is the quote-unquote seminar on lather hydration. When you have a soap with a more normal, top-notch base like Barrister and Mann Glissant. And see, the Razor Glide here is just excellent. And this particular mix has a wonderful creaminess to it as well. Sometimes if you go for real performance, then you start to lose the creaminess even on the good soaps. But you just have to pick what you like. And so there we go. See, now this, the wispiness that you saw after I shaved on the first pass, you don't see this. It's different now because this was more hydrated. See, I mean, there's almost no wispiness at all because it's just, it's so well hydrated that, I don't know, it almost, and I can feel it. Secondary slickness right now is top notch. I don't have to reapply lather to go back there. And that's because there's enough water in there to do it. Now over here, I did it first, and it is starting to be that way. And so I would need to reapply over here. But still, I wouldn't actually had to reapply the lather if I didn't want to. I could get a splash of water, pop it up here, and it would invigorate what was already there. So this is, you never know when you're starting out to make this kind of video to try to help somebody if it's going to land that way, but I think it's working out very well. It's a very good example showing a lot of different aspects of how a lather behaves. And here again, we've just got that glistening, a soft look to it, marshmallow cream style. And you can see the stuff around the edges was what was built up during the lather. We can incorporate that if we want. I mean, I'm almost done with my shave. I'm about to put on the third pass, and I've got so much lather available. I mean, look at that look at the way it moves. You see how, now that was excellent. I'm glad I got that. You see how long that stretched and became. And while a good meat of it came along with it, it wasn't just one blob plopping down. So that's a great example of how far you can take this kind of soap. And so, yeah, I could have definitely gone farther with my hydration if I wanted to. Here's another thing about lathers. You won't see a lot of guys online that will take mine. Take mine as their lather as far as I take mine. They don't take the time with it, and maybe they don't want to take the time. That's just fine, right? Not everybody has that amount of time. But the condition of your lather, whether it's dry or really well hydrated, affects so much. It can affect your razor reviews, your blade reviews. It affects your brush performance. So I've got these Simpson brushes that I've tried them in Best Badger and even Super Badger, and they weren't soft to me at all, even after I soaked them for a very long time. But a person who uses a much drier lather, that dryness of the lather, the thickness is going to make the brush seem softer than it really is. And so you've got to be careful when listening to reviews about those kind of things. If a person likes a thick, cakey lather, then they may need to use a razor that's more aggressive than you do, if you like a lather more like mine. And so that can really come into play there. It really affects the whole part of the shave there. They're trying to cut through the lather that they've created. Their safety bar doesn't maybe quite right as close to the skin because of the thickness of the lather. They may also, somebody may call a razor aggressive or medium when it could be really aggressive to you, because you're able to get closer to the skin, you've got more protection, that sort of thing. All right. And even this guy, the little dribble together on my goatee, he's probably a symbol that I could add more water if I wanted. Matter of fact, what I think is you should generally shoot for adding enough water to where it starts to kind of drip down off your face. Some people say if you ain't dripping, you're tripping. You're tripping if you ain't dripping, that kind of thing. And that's just how they like it. Now, maybe you won't land there. Maybe that's not where you like it. I don't like that. I don't like my shirt to be that messy when I'm done shaving. This is more like what I enjoy, or maybe slightly more wet than this. Also, this kind of hydration usually prevents any kind of dissipation issues that could potentially arise. Oh, you remember that wispiness that I was talking about that I had on the first one? After you went, see, I've got a little bit of wispiness here, but you can look at it. I can tell that it's a wet wispiness instead of a dry wispiness, and maybe that's the crucial factor. Maybe that's what you need to look for, a way to tell. And yeah, this is just wonderfully slick, and the razor's got excellent glide as it moves across. And I don't really think cushion really comes into play as being either good or bad. I think just the viscosity of the lather, proper hydration is cushion. And so the guys like to talk about it, and I may mention it from time to time, but I don't think it matters. I think it's irrelevant to a good shave. The hydration, the slickness, that's really, I don't think cushion protects you. Let's put it that way. I think it's slickness that protects you. When your razor can easily glide over your skin, and the blade can contact your skin and move across it safely without irritation, because of that slickness, that's what you want. That's the whole goal of everything. And so then who cares what cushion matters? As a matter of fact, I think cushion could be a detriment, because it means it's a thicker lather. It means it needs more water, potentially. All right, let's get a good rinse now. Skin feels great, and I got a nice close shave. All right, and as I did the rinse just now, it reminded me of another test for a lather that could be too dry for you. And that is when you have done with a passive shaving and you go and you splash the water up on your face to do a rinse. If that water invigorates and churns up the residual soap that's on your face, to feel like you could just shave again with the slickness that you're experiencing, and if it takes a few splashes to kind of get that away, then that means you've got concentrate on your face instead of lather. And it means that you could definitely go with a wetter lather if you wanted to. So right now, it didn't really do that. It did invigorate it a little bit, like during the first rinse, but then with the second one, I could feel it starting to go away. And so then I knew that it wasn't a lot of concentrate on my face. It was a lather that was well hydrated. The benefit of a well hydrated lather, and there are a good many of them. I think SugarDaddyShaves.com, if you go there, I know I have a page there about bowl lathering versus face lathering, and I'm not putting one against the other in a bad or good way. I'm just saying here are some good things about one, here's the good things about the other, bad things about one, bad things about the other, that kind of thing. I can't remember if I put anything up there about the benefits of a good wet lather versus a dry one. Another benefit of a well-hydrated lather is that some of the soaps that we have ingredients that could cause irritation to our skin. And so I think there are guys out there who think they have sensitive skin because they're getting reactions to particular ingredients in a lather. Maybe they're getting more razor burn. But if they're using a thicker lather and getting those things, the thicker lather means a higher concentration of those soap ingredients on your face. And that's caused me problems before. But if the wetness of the lather is there, then that dilutes those ingredients. It makes it slick, and it makes it to where you can enjoy the scent and all that has, and all that it gives you, without getting the bad effects of having it affect your skin. That water dilutes those ingredients so that it doesn't impact your skin in a negative way. Also, if it helps with razor burn, if the lather is slick and it helps you with preventing razor burn, then all of a sudden maybe you don't have sensitive skin at all. Maybe you could have bad razor technique. That could be something that needs to be worked on. But it could be that your better lather technique also comes into play and you don't get the sensitive razor burn that you once did. It really has happened before, and it could be a potential issue. So there we go. That was 3 magical passes, and this is why Glissant is perhaps my favorite Barrister and Mann base to date, because you can see how much water it took. You can see how it looks. I mean, that's just glorious, right? It's well hydrated. It's got some weight to it because of that hydration. It's still creamy, feeling on the face. And look, even that, it's still got some structure to it, okay? And of course, we've been talking about this this lather has sat out, and so it's lost some of its moisture. But most of you guys don't take 45 minutes to shave, right? And so you're not going to have that issue. So we have lost a little bit of moisture, so that's why it's behaving a little bit more dry than before. But still, it is just a beautiful, terrific lather here. And plenty of it. That's another 3 passes of lather in the bowl right there. How much water do we use? We use quite a bit. 25 milliliters of water, and that was 45 seconds of loading. Not quite sure. It's not a great, this particular shave, while it may be a great look at some landmarks along the hydration path of a lather, it may not be a great recipe for you to duplicate, since it was a soap that sat around for a long time. It was a soap that rotated in the puck in the container as I was loading it, that sort of thing. Even if you were to add up the number of seconds that I loaded, I don't know that it would be a great example to follow. It might be better than nothing, but anyway. So I hope this helps you, some of you shavers out there who are curious to what I consider to be some of the lather landmarks during that life cycle. And so I pointed out as many things as I could think of. Obviously, you can take at any point in your shave, take a chunk of your lather out. And one thing that I like to do, and you just feel the slickness, of course, but and that'll help you help tell you how you're doing. One of the things I like to do is, sure, get some on your finger and feel the slickness, and as you move your thumb across your fingertips that have the lather, feel how it is when you move it back. Some lathers, some soaps, will feel great when it goes across the first time because they have that lather sitting on them. But then, since you've cleared away the lather, when you go back, that's more of a real test because what's still on your skin, what is still there, what kind of slickness is there. I've had plenty that feel great the first time, but then when I go back, it's a watery kind of slickness that's kind of disappeared. And so that's something to pay attention to. This one, it feels creamy. It feels exactly like it did on the face, where it's well hydrated, but very creamy. It feels luxurious. It feels like a spa day. So that was a win-win. And in terms of the scent, it didn't bother me for sure. It was pleasant. Now let's get my nose into it. I'm glad I have plenty in the bowl to help my nose out. Yeah, I could tell it's floral, but it's not femininely floral because it's almost like a dark kind of floral. And then lavender, of course. We know that is a classic scent note that's in so many of the soaps out there, or the shaving products out there. And so I think it serves to make the violet kind of earthy. I think they work really well together. I'm glad I have this as a soap. I'm glad that all of a sudden I realized I wanted to try it because by trying that EDT first, it kind of put me off a little bit. Then all of a sudden I realized, wait a minute, there's a lot of cases where I don't like the EDT because of some strong part to it, but I don't like the soap because the soaps are a more muted version of the EDT in many cases. And so then that strength, that potency that was a little too much for me as a cologne, all of a sudden is calmed down a little bit, and I'm able to appreciate much more. So I'm glad I have this soap. I'll be keeping this guy around. I think he's probably a pretty underrated soap. So for lavender lovers that like it with a tweak of maybe violet or a dark floral tweak, I think then that this might be a great choice for them if they can find it. I haven't seen it very much. I haven't seen it come up at all. It's a very dense brush, and so I wanted to make sure to give it a good rinse. Got to get that middle part, make sure that you get the lather out of it. Another reason to have a nice wet lather, a well hydrated one, it makes cleaning your brushes a lot easier because you're not dealing with as much concentrate, that sort of thing. If you're a face latherer, then it's harder to take a lather to this wet point that you see me do it today. And so that could be part of the reason why a lot of face latherers will settle for a lather that's drier because it's more practical. It stays on the brush. It doesn't fly off your face while you're working it. You saw it. I was even needing to use this as a reservoir during my part of the shave. And so it's harder to get, and that's why I don't face lather. It's harder to get a wet lather like that when you are face lathering. So I could definitely see if you like it without a bowl, then you may have to settle for a lather that's a little more dry than what you've seen today. Well, I've been applauding and lauding this lather for quite a while now, so I don't need to talk about that too much. But the razor did very well today. And that's typical of what I see happen with it. The Perma-Sharp was a great matchup in it. I did not feel like any irritation. I don't have any irritation right now, even several minutes after giving myself the full rinse. Now I'm going to reach up here and get my BaM. Later on I'll put on the Hipster, but the Dunshire BaM is what I'll use today. And before I put it on, I like to get my face just a little wet. And that way a little goes a long way and it doesn't feel thick on your face. Even if you walk away immediately after your shave with a little white color on your face because of the BaM, this one can sometimes do that. It absorbs in just a few minutes, so it'll go away. And There we go. Since I don't have any irritation, I don't really need protection, but I'm pretty sure that even if you don't feel it, it's good for your skin to receive the healing benefits of a balm after the shave. All right. Terrific. So this is what that brush looks like. It's a 28 millimeter with that fan type shape. You get a lot of it touching your face as you're working, and that's part of the fun. That's part of the great comfort feel of that. I don't reckon there's anything to mention. So simple forging, this one is for you, but not specifically for you. I wouldn't take this much time. Well, you know what? Knowing me, I might. But I also feel like plenty of other guys out there could use this type of cartography of laying down the map of the lifetime of a shave lather, and things to look for. And so hopefully this benefits the shaving community as a whole, as well as you shave simple forging. And so this has been an example of lathering with a top-notch soap, but one that has kind of that typical structure instead of that low one of like the Excelsior or the Soft Heart. Maybe the Milk Steak is a little bit low from Declaration Grooming. This is one of the glissants, a little older, but as you could see, the lather was fantastic. In a way, I don't think Will needed to change it at all, but he obviously wanted to turn and move toward adding moisturizing ingredients to his soaps, and so that's why we have the Soft Heart and the Excelsior, that sort of thing. So there we go. I hope this helps you, Simple Forging, and the community as a whole. And all you other guys who are regular watchers, thank you so much. It's wonderful communicating with you in the comments. You guys, take care.